Hey everybody, Obsidian Drake's here. So I just went to an RTT this past weekend and I took some aggressors. I ran Blood Angels in the Gladius detachment and they shredded. So my first game here was against Eldar, and I figured during this video I'm going to go ahead and go through that. I have various slides and things like that, so you're going to want to go ahead and stick around and see what I learned, some maybe mistakes that I made, but also some great strategies that I went and pulled off. So let's go ahead and get started. So, yep, I went to this RTT in October, so this past weekend, and this is just one of the pictures right here of my repulsor, Librarian Dread, and fighting down Fugan. So it was an interesting battle that I'll get a little bit more into as we get going on. All right, so this is my list, right? So to get started, got to know what I played. So again, I played Blood Angels in the Gladius detachment. Um, and so I took two characters, the Apothecary Biologist with that fire discipline. So that's making those aggressors start putting out a lot more damage because of those exploding fives. And then he innately has those exploding sixes. Or not exploding sixes. It gives him exploding sixes, but he has lethal hits. So those sixes are going to crit. And then I have my chaplain with jump pack. So I went with the generic chaplain with jump pack because of the +1 to wound. He's cheap. And then also he can do maybe a couple mortal wounds on the charge. And then I put Artificer armor on him because I had an extra 10 points. So give him a 2-up save and 5-up feel no pain. Some intercessors for that sticky objectives. The aggressors, like I said. Ballistic Dread, two Death Company squads with jump packs and infernal pistols. I have the Power Fists in there because the Power Fists, I think, and Infernal Pistols are the best loadout right now for them. Two Inceptor squads with the Plasma. I think in the future I might do one with bolters, one plasma. These guys are just to threaten those backfilled objectives and or come on down and take an objective from your opponent to kind of reduce their primary. Infiltrators, they're hanging out in my backfield. They're screening a lot, so I'm not getting ambushed from behind. And then my Librarian Dreadnought, super clutch unit. This unit, essentially what he does is, he's actually pretty, he can fight and he can shoot pretty well. But the big thing is the teleport on a 2-up. He can teleport an infantry unit around the map, and I did that in all of 3 of my games, and it was very, very impactful. And then my repulsors, I have 2 of those. Those are kitted with las cannons, and then the las talons. Those 2, and then my ballistas, they were my kind of anti-tank firepower. That is something I guess I wish I would have had a little bit more of in my later games. But the first 2 games, they did great. 2 scout squads, so I like having those infiltrators. The infiltrate keyword or ability is really, really powerful because you already can start on those midfield objectives, and 55 points out there. They're going to have to dedicate something to come to you, and they're going to have to sacrifice something. And most of the time, what they're trading you, you're probably going to be winning on that trade because 55 points is so cheap. So they're going to have to dedicate something to come on in and kill them, especially with them being 2 wounds each. Allied units, I had Inquisitorial Henchmen, and they're just action monkeys, 40-point squad, put them in reserves, come on, do an action or something. And then I skipped over those Vanguard veterans. These Vanguard vets, I know that people are kind of down on them right now, but they're 105 points. So throwing them out there, hopefully maybe shredding a cheaper unit, and then I'm only sacrificing 105 points of my list in that trade process. So I figured that they did pretty well. I think maybe in the future I was thinking about trying out assault intercessors with jump packs just to save myself that 20 points. Because if I can save 20 points there and then 10 points with the Artificer armor and maybe change something else, I can maybe get another allied unit in or something along those lines. So that's kind of my list right there. All right, and then so game 1 I played Eldar. So with Eldar, so this was their list. So they had just under that 10 under the 2,000 points. So they had the Octarch Wayleaper, the Farseer Skyrunner, Fugan, who's really awesome. He gets up. He's one of those models that if he dies, he can get back up. I think on a 2-up. with full wounds. So he's an anti-tank guy, so he's pretty. You know, he's in this picture in the corner. He's fighting my librarian dreadnought after he got up after I killed him. So he kind of got to run around and do some stuff. And then the Night Spear, the Incarn as well. The Incarn was teleporting around and kind of doing some stuff in this game that you know, she was pretty scary. I think she ended up teleporting and killing some stuff. But and then the Falcon, which he put in deep strike, which I did not know, was something to kind of be aware of. Fire dragons with Fugan, right? They can come down and basically melt just about what they want to. Rangers there with I believe the Night Spear, or I forget exactly one of them. It was with one of the characters, and then they were kind of forward deployers, and then the Warp Spiders, or before that, Swooping Hawks. They just came down, did an action, and then I murdered them. But they were all action monkeys. Come on down, do something. I think they had some, it had some pretty good weaponry too. And then the Warp Spiders. Warp Spiders are huge. I mean, this guy Flicker, he said it was a flicker jump, and they move 24 inches and come down, and just their sheer weight of shots of their flamers are something that you really need to be aware of. They can murder pretty much any, I would say just about any Marine unit that's T4. I think, of course, with the increased toughness, it becomes harder, but they're really good. And then finally, he had a Wraith Knight, which, God, a Wraith Knight is really hard to kill. I had to dedicate a lot into trying to kind of deal with that kind of threat. So what was the map that we were playing, mission and stuff? So we played on player place terrain. We did Crucible of Battle, and then so I was the defender. He went first. So score 5 points, 10 points, and then at the end of the game, you score 5 points for every objective you're on, up to 15. So the deployment, as you can see, I have these little markers here, straight along there, and then his was exactly the same on the other side. Um, and then going into the next slide. All right, so this is my deployment. So just quick here, just kind of you can kind of see what's going on. Like I think the big thing with deployment, guys, is you just need to hide everything. Try not to get your stuff shot on the first turn. If anything, if you don't go first, try to give your opponent nothing. And I was pretty good about doing that in all of my games, hiding everything. Plenty of room with player place terrain to kind of hide your stuff. That you get to choose where your stuff is, and uh, where I play locally, it's 4 inches for each room to be um, far apart, right? So you can't have them closer to 4 inches. And all bottom floors, I know you can see the windows here, but they're actually all blocked for line of sight purposes. So, I have scouts here, and there's windows, but they can't be seen. And then also here as well, I have scouts. So I have two. He only had the one infiltrator. I was the defender, so I plopped some guys down here, and so he's on this one, and I'm on both of these. So right then and there, it's kind of like, hey, like you have to come to me, and you're gonna have to try and trade me. So yep, just Death Company in here, got the scout squads, and then my infantry, intercessors, and infiltrators here, and then the other stuff's on over there. This is his deployment. So I figured it'd be important to kind of show a little bit about like where he was, kind of help with what I was thinking and everything. So it was Wraith Knights right here, Incarn with some Warp Spiders, up here, and then there was also some behind this crate. And then these are the Swooping Hawks. They started here and they came up and then came down on my backfield to get them teleport homers, I believe. And then he decided to put his Rangers up in this building. I think maybe he was trying to snipe something or do something. So he had the guys up here and a couple squads of Warp Spiders. All right, so turn one. So turn one went to the Eldar, and so their secondaries were cleanse and investigate signals. So he cleansed the objective where his Rangers were, and then investigated signals. He was able to kind of do, I believe, several quarters or 2 quarters in the back. And then he flicker jumped one of his squads of warp spiders here. And so you can't see my repulsor, but it's right here, and you could just make a line on them. I chose to overwatch, which was the wrong move. I should have used squad tactics and moved through this wall. If I would have moved through this wall, then he would have just been stuck there. And so he would have just been kind of stuck there, and then I could have saved this unit because this Wraith Knight was not touching, and so he didn't really have any shooting or anything. So that was it was the wrong play, but it ended up not really mattering because I was able to kind of continue to make good trades later in the game. Yeah, watch out. I believe it's Phantasm, right? Whatever their move is, right? So like I was saying, I could use the squad tactics to move. I could have possibly, as he moved near me, I could have moved here and actually took up the same position that he's in here. So what he's about to do is move this one little guy over behind this wall. So he was just able to get on the other side of the wall, but he was still touching it, which will come to kind of play a little later. So yeah, he shot me, blasted my scouts, and then came over here. And he's like, okay, well, what are you going to do now, right? I have to go ahead and do something. So that's his first turn. Turn one for the Drakes, so the Obsidian Drake. So I got Assassination, and I decided to bin it to try to maybe, or I binned it, I think, at the end of the turn. I can't remember if I decided to bin it via this strat or not. And then I got Secure No Man's Land. So as you can see in this picture, my Death Company, they came in here. Those guys were touching the wall, those warp spiders. I fought them through the wall and just, I cleaned them up. And then at the end of his turn, I want to say that I brought up my scouts that were over here. And then I did that on turn one, or his turn two. And then I teleported my intercessors over here, right? Because my strategy in the beginning is to kind of feel out the game a little bit, start teleporting maybe the intercessors around, and start, sticking some of these objectives, and then keeping my aggressors maybe back. Because, I mean, the big thing is maybe teleporting that aggressor palm in and then knocking something out or killing something big, hopefully, and then maybe even taking an objective. But in the beginning, it's kind of like, hey, like I'm really trying to position and see where I need to put my pieces in the beginning of the game. But yeah, so I binned Assassination, and then I secured No Man's Land. Turn two for the Eldar. So, they scored 10 on primary, right? So they were able to hold on to, and so looking at this building, this is where those Rangers were. So before I'll tell you that. So on my turn, I sent out my Vanguard veteran squad. So I was able to get to here. I believe I called Assault Doctrine, or I put them into Assault Doctrine. And I was able to, I basically cleaned up the whole squad except the character had one wound left. And he decided, as I moved down to take this objective, he ran away. So then the Wraith Knight came in and cleaned up my guys, and so on my turn two, I decided to come on in and try to take down this Wraith Knight. So for his turn two, basically he got 10 points for having this objective, and then also the one over here in his field, he got Assassination. He binned that, and then Teleport Homers. That's what the Swooping Hawks did. They came in the back, and very good unit, I think. And then turn two. For me, the Drakes, I got 10 points, and then I got Extend Battle Lines for 5 points, and then Overwhelming Force for 3. So he ran away from me, so I was hoping to kind of come down and possibly kill both of these units on this objective, but I was able. So this is 10 Death Company with their Chaplain. I had both repulsors and my Ballistas at him. And it actually took every single thing, all their infernal pistols, all of that anti-tank fire to just kill him. So it was in 9th edition, these guys would have totally melted him alone, but no, it wasn't the case this time. I mean, he is over a 500-point unit, so it took a bunch of stuff to kind of go and take him down, which was nice. So so 5 for Extend Battle Lines, and then 3 for the Overwhelming Force. And then turn 3 for the Eldar. So they got primary 10 points. They were able to kind of take back some objectives. After I killed that Wraith Knight, that Incarn kind of came in. And then they were also able to kind of get some other things into the middle. And then Fugan, you can see in the back here, he's in this building on the top left where my ballistic dreadnought is, and so he came in and they melted my dreadnought right in the face. So they were able to storm hostile objectives, so they took that one from me, and they secured no man's land for 2 points. So I think that might be an error, but I'm not sure. I think that they might have just took this one back because my in, inceptors are down there, and then some of my death company were able to pile onto it. And then Eldar Vehicles Deep Strike. I did not know this, but he was able to put down that Falcon boom right there, and he was able to assist some of the squads in just murdering my dreadnought. So something to be aware of is he says they can deep strike, so getting a bright lance into your face is something that you're definitely going to want to be aware of when playing Eldar. And then so I made this slide. So his backfield was now exposed, right? So he started moving up. He had to come and start trading some of those units to me. He had already lost some of those Action Monkey squads, right? Because he got his secondaries early on, and then I mopped those up to make sure they're not running around doing other things. So his backfield was now open. He had this character on here, and this is that character if you get close to, he can kind of run away and stuff. And then this one in the middle left of the screen, you can see that wound marker, and that's the guy who ran away from my plasma inceptors, and he kind of moved forward again. But as he moved up, that left space for my henchmen and my scout squad that I pulled up to redeploy down and get me some secondaries later on. So I think it's always important to kind of, how can you make them come forward and maybe open up some stuff for your secondaries? Something to think about. Yep. So here's my turn 3. So primary 10, my secondaries, bring it down and cleanse. So they're, the Falcon is right now. It's near this guy on bike over there, and then so these warp spiders are here, and then I got my death company there. I declined to move them because I knew as soon as I moved them, he was going to just overwatch them. So I didn't want to give him that unit in my turn. So I decided hey, these death company are doing nothing this turn. I think they shot. That was it. They're infernal pistols. But there's little things like that you kind of have to think about, what am I getting by moving these guys to charge? He's just going to take them up, and then there's one less thing for him to maybe shoot on his turn. So I didn't do anything with them so that they can absorb the shots for his next turn. And then the Incarn teleported where he blew up my dreadnought. So, and then Fugan and his squad are right here. So my aggressors, they moved up finally. I actually didn't have to teleport them in this game. They just came out, and then I was actually able to put so many shots. I oathed the moment this Incarn, and then I basically poured half of the aggressor shots into him, and then I believe half of the aggressor shots into this squad, leaving only Fugan alive. And so I took down the Incarn for that, bring it down, and then I charged on in and took out those Melta guys. And then I want to say nothing really happened in the middle. I think I might have came in and touched into this building and shot up these warp spiders with my repulse because he's tall enough to see them through this building. I was able to kind of move him up. I believe I moved him up after this picture was taken. And then after I killed the Incarn in shooting, I believe I killed him and her in shooting, and then I actually charged Fugan and them, or I might have charged both. Turn 4, so this is finally where it turned for the Eldar. So they had 0 primary because I had my Inceptors over here where the Wraith Knight was, and top middle. And then you can see my Inquisitorial henchmen in the back, 4 of them. They actually have basically a bolter profile that's only 12 inches. They came in and they took out that character with 1 wound. So it's the first time my Action Monkey squad's done anything really of value after they've done the action. So it's kind of a little victory for them, which is kind of cool. And then I have 2 Inceptor squads. The other ones came down and they were able to take this objective from that character. I took the risk and I decided, hey, you know what I'm going to do is I'm gonna actually overcharge and shoot them. And then my scout squad kind of moved up because they were able to deep strike as well. So they put some. I don't believe they put shots on it, but I overcharged the plasma and just killed that character. and then eventually on that turn I kind of moved him up. You can see the other squad of Inceptors here in the middle. So he got a tempting target. And was able to get 5. I believe he was able to kind of take this objective back with some of those warp spiders from the previous slide, and then for my intercessors that were in this building, I had moved them and jumped them over, and then now this in turn that's not going his way. I had already killed most of his assets, and then turn 4 I got 10 primary because again, like on this mission, you're getting 5, 10, and then 15 at the end. My secondaries were tempting target, which I was able to get, and then I deployed teleport homers with one of, I believe, my scout squad or my henchmen that turn. And then turn 5 again, so nothing for the Eldar. By then they didn't really have any assets, but this warp spider squad had kind of teleported to my backfield objective, which I killed them in my turn, and then also I took down that vehicle. So basically that turn 5 I got 25 for primary. So I was able to max primary. Secondaries, I got behind enemy lines 5 points, and then no prisoners 2 points. So really, that kind of sums up the game of secondary scoring, and then also with being able to do some of the secondary scoring, and then also the primary. But the big thing was, I came up, and I kind of held my line. And then I had these, harassing units to where I'm going to come into your backfield and then maybe flank you a little bit, and it seemed to work pretty well in terms of like the trading and everything. And then so the conclusion, so it was a 99-44 victory for the Obsidian Drakes. The conclusion is the Librarian Dreadnought, it was clutch. He was so great teleporting those intercessors around and stickying things. The sticky didn't really necessarily come up, but there was a decision where I was like, I can take these infiltrators off of this back objective and move them around. But with their flicker jumping of the warp spiders, I just was like, no, I'm just going to stay here, play it safe. I don't need them anywhere right now. And he was able to just teleport anything. And at one time, I was thinking about teleporting my aggressors to the backfield to shoot the Incarn, but there was warp spiders back there, and I did not want to get flamed. And then also with the Incarn's profile, she's pretty beefy, so I think that would have been probably a bad call. So I played conservatively, screened everything out, and then slowly just started playing that trading game in the middle, and I was able to trade up pretty effectively. Inceptors to threaten objectives, it was amazing. It really was. It was probably one of the, I think in every single Marine list, if you don't have at least one squad, or I think you're doing yourself a huge disservice. The strike to get in within 3 inches is so big, and having 2 squads to do that, I was able to do that to both of his objectives that he scored, and one I was able to shoot him and kill him, but then also like if they're in another game, I could maybe if you can just kill enough guys to get 3 OC can take over that objective, it can be really really important, and it just makes your opponent think. They know they're coming in, and it's something that they kind of have to look out for. And in my second game, my opponent knew what they could do, and he made sure to spread out on objectives so that I couldn't come on down and take them from him, which left him exposed in a different way, which was nice. Scout, redeploy, and chief henchman squads were useful. So again, 110 points for all the scouts, and then 150 points I spent on these just kind of these midfield, these infiltrators, and just some action guys, and it paid off because once I knew that the objectives, my one scout squad got nuked, but then my other one was safe, and I was able to teleport over there. I was able to kind of take it up and then be able to kind of come back and flank and hold one of those back objectives, and it's 55 points, and then now it's in your backfield, it's 10 wounds, 4 up save. You can, I believe, play Armor of Contempt on it if you needed to. I don't think you would, but Aggressors did work. They didn't seem too OP with the Strength 4, and the AP2. They did work. They did what they needed to do when I was like, hey, look at this, shoot it and kill it. They did it. But I know on some of my previous videos where I was kind of rolling it out, there are some pretty tough things out there that they're just not going to kill. You can really do a good amount of wounds to it, but you're really going to want to charge in and try to kill it and finish it off. And then finally, repulsors and ballistas were great firepower and bullet magnets. So yeah, they absorbed a bunch of those big attacks that maybe would have destroyed my aggressor squad and other things. But they were also able to kind of shoot out those last talons and last cannons and crack missiles and just really help me take down that Wraith Knight, for instance, and then be able to do some good damage down to the Incarnate. So I believe she halves damage, which is something to be aware of as well. Very good unit. But yeah, I think repulsors and ballistas are great. I think that the if I could, I think maybe I would switch it out for like I know I've mentioned it in other videos, possibly getting some Gladiator Lancers just for pure anti-tank stuff, and then maybe a couple ballistas for that as well to kind of move up and be tanky. I mean, 2-up save, 12 wounds on an objective is really nice. But also repulsors. I mean, they're T12, 16 wounds. You can put guys inside them. They can jump back in if they're wholly within 3 inches, and they're OC5, so they can hold down objectives, and they can be a scary unit in their own right. If you go to the middle with 2 repulsors and it's like, hey, here's 2, T12 vehicles with 16 wounds. So here's, T12, 32 wounds on 2 different chassis, and then you're in it for, 380 points. It's hard to shift, and, I can imagine with 5 OC. 5 OC is a pretty good amount. So, I mean, together would be 10, but, or you can just send them off and doing their own thing. But yeah, man, that's my conclusions from this tournament that I went to. This is just the game 1, so I was thinking about making videos on the other 2 games as well. But I'd love it if you guys could give me some of your comments, your feedback. Let me know if you like this video. If you don't, maybe any constructive criticisms of like, hey, like put this in here or not. And if you guys can, if you guys do like this kind of stuff, please, like, comment, and subscribe. I know people always say that kind of stuff, but it really would help me out, and it would kind of give me a good indication if this is the kind of stuff that people want to see, and see what works, maybe what doesn't. So thanks everybody, and you take care. Bye.